This video is going to be slightly different to my normal tutorials and my normal waffle. This is a retrospective, introspective video, if you like, of 5 things that I wish I knew when I first started out or when I was in my mid-flow back in the 1990s. I've been doing this now for 32 years, and over those years I've made a lot of ground. I've learned a lot of things. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had a lot of success. I've had minor success, big success, all kinds of different levels of success in DJing and producing and record releasing, etc. Here are 5 things I wish I knew more about when I was younger from the 1990s. Let's go. So, number 1, I am a keyboard player out of all instruments that I've decided to play over the years. I've tried drumming, I've tried bass, I've tried guitar. I wasn't too bad at guitar, but I'm left-handed, so it was obviously a lot difficult to read the tabs. So, giving up all that, I basically became a piano player, keyboard player. I've always had an electric piano of some sort. For the last 25 years, I've never not had an electric piano or an acoustic piano, depending on where I've lived. And I've got one here right now. Obviously, it's one I bought recently, which is the Korg. And basically, I wish I'd stuck to sheet music. I wish I'd stuck to playing it. I learned how to read sheet music about 23 years ago, after producing for years, you know, and just winging it. And I thought to myself, I'm going to learn how to read sheet music. And I had to learn from the very, very beginning, you know, London Bridge is Falling Down and very simple nursery rhyme stuff to learn to read the sheet. Obviously, over the years, I've got better and better at it, but I pick and choose now when I play. I'm very intermittent with it. I don't stick to it religiously like I say I do. I'm going to practice for an hour a day or half an hour a day, and I don't. The point is, I know that if I did, I'd be so much better as a player. I just know that the discipline and the technique would be so much better. I can read sheet music, and I'd probably at a grade 3 if you was to, you know, grade me with the official music school grades. But I know I could be a 4 or 5 or a 6 if I practiced every day. I can play things like Adagio for strings, which is, you know, quite sophisticated. But I was taught how to play this by someone. You know, I can do that sort of stuff. And Pet Shop Boys obviously were my band growing up, and I can do their songs because, you know, I can read chords very well. I know how to read chords and play melodies. But it's one thing I wish I'd stuck at was sheet music. So if you're a producer and you want to learn how to play better, learn to read sheet music. I can assure you your playing will become so much more advanced like that. Number 2, I wish I developed the patience a lot younger to be more disciplined with myself in a music production setting. So, for example, when I was younger, all I had was an Akai sampler and an Atari ST. That was what got me going when I first went into digital music production. And I was in such a rush to make a track. I was just bang, 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 sample this, sample that, do this, do that, just da-da-da. Don't worry about the theory side of it. Just throw it together and see what happens. It's like alchemy. It was like sound alchemy. It was like dead exciting to put this sample with that sample. Does it go in key? Doesn't matter. Just throw it together. Sometimes the results would be great, sometimes they'd be catastrophic. But the point is, I was always in such a rush to get a track done. I was like, bang, bang, I was like just constantly just putting stuff together. Without really learning more of the technique side of things until I was much older and much later. So for example, mixing a track and, you know, learning how to EQ properly and you know, and learning how to play in key and play a bass line in key with the chords. I had no idea of this. I just winged it from day one all the time without actually going, do you know what, I could learn to read sheet music a lot younger or learn the basics of music theory a lot younger, but it wasn't in me. I was in such a motivational drive to make music. Like dance music was all sample based anyway, so it didn't necessarily require me to play bass lines or chords on top, etc. at the time. Filtering disco house was kind of the in thing in '94 when I first started doing it on a more serious level. So it was kind of just a case of arrangement techniques that you had to learn. But yeah, I wish I'd spent more time trying to be more technical with things, you know, the mixing, the EQing, you know, that kind of thing, as opposed to doing that much later. So that's that. Number 3, I wish I had the foresight to be a bit more of a visionary back in those days. So for example, I was lucky enough to have been a DJ and a producer at the time when certain house music subgenres were being born. So trance, you know, progressive house, disco house, Speed Garage, you know, all of these things that I was there at their initial birth, you know, and it was exciting and, you know, fast moving and all that kind of thing. But I wish, as the music scene evolved, I wish I'd had the foresight more to be more courageous in the fact to try something like, you know, set up a record label a lot earlier than I did, and be more planning in that and have more of a vision. You know, I was very, again, in the moment all the time, just rush. And it doesn't matter what you do in life, you know, if you don't plan something, it will fall apart. And I've learnt that many times over the years, in terms of business ventures that I've gone into. I mean, in 2005, I set up my own MP3 digital download site. And it was called mp3digi.com, and I spent about $2,000 trying to set this little website up. At the time, this software where you could download digital stuff. It was all new, it was all very primitive stuff in comparison to now. But I tried then, and not realising the infrastructure that I actually needed behind me. You know, I needed whole size hosting of the website itself, and that cost money. And, you know, I needed somebody who was good with graphics, or somebody who was good with back-end stuff. You know, I was trying to do everything myself, and I was not reaching out and going to developers or someone else who was good at, you know, graphic design to help me and bring in to, you know, work alongside. So that fell flat on its face, but nevertheless, I tried again. It was another one of those things I tried. I raced into it and I tried and I failed, but, you know, at least I tried. So yeah, I wish I'd had the foresight to be more patient and, you know, more visionary and plan more, basically. Number 4, I wish I'd networked more when I was in my prime. So when I had a hit single, I was in London a lot, I was on TV, I was doing all these interviews, and I was at all these different record label things. And at the time, I was quite introvert, really, believe it or not. And I left everything to my manager and the team that I worked with, which was the brand I worked for 10 years, called Progress in Derby. And for 10 years or so, from 93 to 2002, I was looked after, I was managed, I was taken care of. Everything was dealt with, you know, like the DJing gigs were booked, you just had to turn up. You know, the interview was set, you just turned up, you know, so-and-so's going to ring you, you deal with it, you turn up and you do it. I wish I'd had more about myself then to put myself out there more and break away from what I was being told to do, not told to do, but being given to do. So I could have done anything I wanted to do. I wasn't under any sort of contract in terms of you can't do this, can't do that. Just that I wish that at the time I'd broke free a little bit more and made myself known through my own doing, if that makes sense. You know, I was in a great position, I was going here, I was DJing there, I was flying here, but then gradually I was being put under pressure to release another single by the label, and then that took over and most of the DJing, and that got put aside. So I wish I'd had more about myself when I was younger, to put myself out there more without relying on management. And the reason for that, I suppose, is because when my son was born in 2003, I took a break, you know, from music and all that kind of thing, and for about a year or two. I was still DJing, but I took a break, and when I started getting back into it, when everything went digital around 2005, 6, whatever, when it started to get, you know, momentum in that area, and vinyl was on the way out big time during the 2000s. It really did suffer. It wasn't out, but it was suffering. And everything went digital. I was kind of like on my own. It was like, right, wow, I've got to manage myself now. I've got to do my social media, which was MySpace and early Facebook. But it was like I had to learn everything. It was like I had to learn how to design record sleeves and upload stuff and master things, and I had to do all of this stuff myself, you know. And it was like, God, I've got 15 different jobs now, you know, and networking on top of that and putting myself out there was just another mountain to climb on top of the personal stuff you had to do as an artist. So it was kind of like, you know, a bit of a wake-up call in order to start again, I suppose, without a team around me, which was quite, you know, difficult to navigate. And the final one, which is the 5th one, is I wish I'd looked after my records better. Now, I've been buying records since the 80s, since I was a kid, and I've been buying records solidly from 1990 onwards, 89, 90 onwards. But obviously by the 90s I was DJing every week, and I was literally a working DJ 3 or 4 nights a week for at least 10 years. Up until my son was born in 2003. From 93 I was literally in the clubs every week. You know, I probably missed a handful of weekends in the whole of that decade. probably 2 or 3. And I was a working DJ, so all of my records were being used properly out and about in the clubs, wear and tear, travelling around with them, in and out the bag, you know, on the deck, off the deck, slammed about, you know, crunched about, shoved back in the sleeve in dark corners, you know. There was no memory sticks then, you know, to rely on. You had to rely on your records. And a lot of my records I wish I'd looked after. As you can see here, you got the core copy, for example. This is a good example of my records. Sleeves all worn and torn at the top. I've sellotaped it back together at the bottom. The record itself is kind of scratched to, you know, it's got a lot of surface marks on there. You know, same for Born Slippy. Just look at the state of it. It's just, these got used, you know. That's the point I'm trying to make here. These got proper use. Look, Pennies from Heaven, just falling apart. Shades of Rhythm, Sound of Eden, it's coming out the bottom. I need to spend some time looking after them. But a lot of my records were used. They were battered, they were thrown out there, and they were put to work, you know. As the saying goes, never trust anybody who calls themselves a DJ and they've got a mint record collection. That should never happen. But yeah, I wish I looked after my records a lot more than I did. But, you know, they were the tools of the trade and they got used. And at least we've now got digital. So, you know, all is not lost. If I've got a record that's scratched, I can still find a crisp copy and play it off the digital deck. So there are 5 things that I wish I'd knew or worked on better when I was younger in the 90s, when I had a lot more energy and a lot more tenacity about myself. But the important thing is, I'm still here and I'm still doing it. You know, music, as a musician, should I say, or a DJ or a producer, there is no expiry date. You don't have to stop at a certain age. You know, them days are gone, and those people that hold that attitude, oh, he's still doing that, you know, let them get on with it and let them grow old and be miserable earlier than they should. You know, music keeps you young and it keeps you fiery inside. You know, it gives you that spark. It gives me that spark still. You know, when I hear something new and it's fresh and I go, wow, that's pretty cool. You know, and when I listen to my old records from back in the day, it gives me good memories. It gives me good vibes about what used to be, you know, and that's what life should be. It should be about, you know, celebrating things that make you feel good. Doesn't matter how old you are. You know, look at the Rolling Stones. They're in their 80s and they're still on stage and they'll keep going till the last one drops, you know. And I take inspiration from that, you know. And, you know, look at the DJs and the music producers that are at the top of their game. They're all in their 50s. Carl Cox is 60 now, I think, 61. You know, and still doing it because it's within you. If it's within you, you won't stop doing it. So, and that's how I feel. You know, I'm still here. I'm still doing it. Doesn't matter if I'm not successful in terms of being up on the big stages. It doesn't matter where my records land in the sales charts. I still get some good sales, you know, on some singles that I do. Some singles are flop. Some singles do well. Some singles do all right. But the point is, I'm still doing it and I'm still here after 32 years and a whole lifetime of, you know, listening to music. So that's it. There's 5 things I wish I'd knew and done better of. And here we are. Let's head forward. And I'm going to head into my 50s still doing what I do. Take care and goodbye.